It's been 9 centuries. The last time I saw you was your daughter's wedding in Cordoba in the year 1130. Night I never forgot.
That's why you're here today, Mr. HaLevi, or whatever your real name is. You were arrested for travel under a false passport. And when you told the judge, under oath, that you are Yehuda HaLevi, a famous poet and philosopher, and a time traveler from the year 1140, naturally you were remanded for psychiatric evaluation to me.
So he's staying with us in our bubble. Just me, Sati, and Yehuda HaLevi in our Toronto home. Yehuda never sleeps. Day and night he's at work in my study. He's set himself the task of reading my entire library.
Now that you are using Zoom to bridge distances, why not connect with your old college friends from Brandeis that you talk about so fondly?
1, 2, 3, 4. Hey, what was our band called again? The Dylan's cover band?
Argo, how does your time machine work?
It's not a machine. It's a process that combines quantum physics, Kabbalah, Sufi twirling, and drugs.
I thought you're my friend.
I am. And I'm a spy. Now you know my secret. I'm here on a mission, but you can take part too. I'll ask Rambam if you can join the Prophet team.
Yes, a secret agent. A great second career.
You're in elevated spirits today, Izzy.
I'm a man on a mission. Yehuda HaLevi, he's a time travel spy, and he's invited me to join the future prophets.
So you're on a mission.
Hope it's not a delusion.
No, Izzy, your big break. Where will this job take you?
To Winnipeg's North End, 100 years ago. HaLevi told Rambam that was the golden age of Yiddish Canada.
Wasn't your grandfather from Winnipeg's North End?
Yes, I was named for him. Yisroel Yitz Koretz died the year I was born.
Your mother's father. Do you know much about him?
No, just he was head of the Jewish old folks home.
Izzy, this spy job is a chance to understand the past, understand your mother, understand her father. It will help with Sati.
HaLevi says we're going to be like the 12 biblical spies scouting the promised land.
10 spies brought false reports. They say of the 12 spies, what they see is who they are. Go back, Izzy, find out. Not the story of man, the story of one man.
A man on a mission. What I see is who I am.
Yes, Izzy. Now stand by. Yehuda HaLevi, Rambam, and Devora are on the line calling you from Cairo, 1199.
Salam alaikum Alawi Yehuda ben Shmuel el Sha'ir.
Salam alaikum, Rais. Shalom aleich, Devora. Rais, may I present our new recruit, Yitzchak Yisrael ibn Zelig, but folks call him Izzy. He will be my guide to the golden age of Yiddish Canada.
Here, O Isaac Israel. Welcome to our team.
Izzy has his own reasons for his time travel. But what is the significance of this mission?
Well, perhaps you wonder, why does a 12th century Arabic-speaking philosopher, doctor to the Caliph, and spiritual leader of the Jews want to send a mission to Winnipeg in the 1920s?
Rashi asked the same question.
I set up the Future Prophets Intelligence Project to scout out the future of the Jewish people, to see where we're headed, perhaps adjust my teachings, to help. But HaLevi's preliminary reports were shocking.
In Rambam's time, almost all Jews spoke Arabic. But in many Jewish communities in the 5600s, not a single Jew speaks Arabic.
Impossible. Instead, they speak some strange Teutonic language, Yiddish, They don't live as real Jews do around the Mediterranean with fig, olive, and date palm, but in godforsaken lands of snow and ice.
And my research revealed that in the 1920s, the most Yiddish-speaking community outside Eastern Europe was Winnipeg's North End.
Precisely. So we're sending HaLevi, our finest cultural spy, to learn more about these outlandish future Jews.
Some of my best friends are outlandish.
Enough talk. Before our new recruit can go, he must hear the 10 Commandments.
Hear, O Isaac Israel, I am Rais, who freed you from being the slave of your own time. I am your commander.
And Devora, is she not your helpmate? Bone of your bone, flesh of your flesh? Why does she chop meat?
I am Ben Maimon's wife, Devora, co-commander.
In those days, there were no rules against a rabbi marrying one of his female disciples.
What a disciple. I'm a prophetess, for God's sake. I was recruited by Ben Maimonides to be a member of his future prophet team, and he fell in love with me. Now get back to the 10 Commandments.
Yes, dear. Do not make idols. Do not genuflect the sacred cows or golden calves. For I am like a jealous lover who wants certainty about his future generations, like a father who cares.
What do you know about children, Ben Maimon? Have you, as I have, borne them from your body? All generation are women's born. Care that they follow your commandments? I, to the 1,000th generation, show child-loving kindness.
Yes, dear. Fiery woman. Is a very fiery woman.
I'm confused. Who is she again?
Devora, fourth judge of pre-kingship Israel.
The Torah's only female judge. The Ruth Bader Ginsburg of the Bronze Age. Like Golda Meir, the only man in Ben-Gurion's cabinet.
She's Eshat Lapidot, Lapidot's wife. Judges, 4-4.
He's right.
Not so fast, Ben Maimon. Lapid means flame or torch. Eshet Lapidot means fiery woman, light worker.
She's also right.
If he's right and she's right, they can't both be right.
And you're right too.
No, go on. Tell him the rest of the rules.
Don't lie.
Tell it like it is. That's my philosophy.
I don't believe we've met.
Hershel of Ostropol.
Hershel is the personal court jester of the Baal Shem Tov's grandson, a sharp-witted man, and speaks that outlandish language, Yiddish. I'm sending him along to help you scout out the golden age of Yiddish Canada, wherever that is.
No, are you going to finish the 10 Commandments or should I?
Very well. Remember the Sabbath and keep it holy.
I interpret that to mean get high on Shabbat.
Rambam means work hard on your mission 6/7 of the time. 1/7, rest and recreate.
Honor your father and your mother.
What does that have to do with our mission?
Everything. You're traveling 40 generations from me. If each generation honors their parents, then the Israelites will long endure. Your mission, Yehuda, is see if they did and how they did it.
How each generation expresses their Judaism. The story of the collective.
The rest of the rules are the usual. No murder, no adultery, no theft, no false witness, and don't go coveting other times. Final words to HaLevi. Devora?
Uri, Uri, dabari shir. Awake, awake. Speak the song.
Ahazak ve'emat, spies. This Zoom call will consume itself in 5 seconds.
Made a deal with Izzy. If I write a new song for your college rock band, the Dylan covers band, The Complete Unknowns, for their reunion tour, then you will help our mission. Here are the song poem's words.
But we don't even know what the mission's about.
Ori, Ori, Dabri Shir. Awake, awake, speak the song.
Well, okay, but first, Izzy, do your shtick, intro the band.
On lead guitar, Art Roth. On drums, Jethro Argonaut. Vocals, Joni Earhart.
Oh, this song was penned on Mental Kingdom Fool's Cap. Written for favored exiles who forgot to weep. On the run from the lion's den, fled the palace lock-up to capture dream visions wild as they escape our sleep. So where are you tonight, sweet beliefs?
Now we're chasing down each vision through the centuries' jungles. Chasing down each moth with a butterfly net. And they flicker around the flame like an ear mosquito. But I think with my pen I can get those things yet. So where are you tonight, sweet beliefs?
On the wall, the king saw scroll, some writing obviously. But nobody else, not even himself, could understand it. What should it be?
Oh, my selfish gene, you know I just can't jump it. It formed when my father's seed and my mother's egg went. So I just sit at perception's gate, blowing on my trumpet, till my fiery furnace thought trains are all safely fled. Alright, so where are you tonight, sweet beliefs?
On faster by the lampstand, written in an old hand, a highly coded text. Past a foreign country, the times are changing and no one knows what's gonna happen next.
Stepping on alphabet blocks across a river of fountains. Hope I make it to the meaning of the other shore. I'm chasing down wild horses through the Marlborough Mountains. Too bad when they fled, they closed behind them the palace door. So where are you tonight, sweet beliefs?
Our song's a fugitive flash of the palace plunder. It's a message in a souvenir bottle's cast to sea. And the poem waits in the balance till its days are numbered, and washes up on your desert isle with your single palm tree. Wondering, where are you tonight, sweet beliefs?
Are you going to join us, Sati?
I'm here. I was just practicing. Our choir is set to sing Mein Städtele Belts at the Baycrest Center for the Aged for our year-end performance. They love hearing our choir, especially when we sing those old Yiddish songs.
You know Yiddish? I thought your roots were Moroccan.
My father, Yaakov Levy, was Moroccan, but my mother was a survivor. She spoke no Arabic. He spoke no Yiddish. My parents hardly spoke a common language their whole marriage.
Let's get started. Yehuda HaLevi, will you lead off giving us our mission assignment?
Good morning, members of the Complete Unknowns and future prophets in training. The man you are looking at is Izzy's mother's father, Israel Isaac Koritz, who was appointed in 1922 as the first superintendent of Winnipeg's old folks home. Koritz was born in 1886 in the town of Koritz, in Russia's Pale of Settlement, to a well-off, cultured Jewish home. He was well-read, well-dressed, played equally well violin and chess, and had one of his Yiddish poems published by a Vilna literary magazine. In 1906, his mother Chaya arranged a financially worthwhile marriage to a cousin, this woman, Leah Budnerband, from the nearby town of Mezerich, and they soon had 3 children.
In 1912, to escape conscription into the Russian army, Koritz emigrated to Winnipeg, planning, as many Jewish men did in those days, to establish himself in the New World, and then to send for his wife and children. But then World War I broke out. Koritz went to Canada to escape the army and ended up escaping the war. But Leah and their 3 young children were trapped in a war zone, followed by the Russian Revolution, the Spanish flu, the Red-White Civil War, and the post-Versailles creation of Poland. So only after 10 long years of complete separation in 1922 did Leah and the 3 children join Koritz in Winnipeg's North End.
In 1920, the Jewish community of Winnipeg's North End was 99% Yiddish speaking. It had a Yiddish newspaper, Das Yiddish Wort, a Yiddish bookstore, a Yiddish school, and several commercial Yiddish theaters. The proceedings and the minutes, whether of the Garment Workers Union or of the board of directors of the newly established old folks home, were all conducted exclusively in Yiddish.
What little we know about Koritz the man comes to us from a handful of written sources, which I gave you all to review. An article Koritz wrote in 1917, published in Das Jiddische Wort as secretary of the Young Maccabees. The announcement of Koritz's appointment in 1922 as the first superintendent of the Jewish Old Folks Home. An 8-page transcript of his 1923 speech and report to the board of directors of the Old Folks Home. It was published in March of 1924 as part of a commemorative 48-page booklet. A brief article in Das Jiddische Wort, January 1938, of Koritz as president of the Koritz Landsleit, raising funds to send to Koritz, his impoverished hometown in Poland. A letter written in Yiddish on December 31st, 1939, to his eldest daughter, Sylvia. That same daughter, Sylvia's memoirs, dictated when she was 70 years old and transcribed by Sylvia's daughter. A death notice, and a handful of photos. That's all we have to go on.
What are you 2 minor prophets trying to accomplish on this mission? And how can we help?
Maimonides' golden age is rooted in Sfarad, Andalusia, and the Islamic Arabic empires where, in 1199, 90% of the world's Jews lived. Rambam knows almost nothing about Ashkenazi Jewish life. But it turns out in the future, Ashkenazi Jews play a significant role in Jewish history. So my mission is to travel back to North End Winnipeg 1920s, to better understand these strange Jews of the future, transplanted from the Pale of Eastern Europe to the plains of Western Canada, to try to understand their ethics, their communal organizations, their culture, and their art.
I'm trying to solve a more personal mystery, to understand Yisrael Koritz, the man. There's the mystery of what he was doing in Winnipeg during those 10 long years alone. The mystery of his marriage to my grandmother, Leah. The mystery of my mother's birth on March 21st, 1924. How did that come about? And what world, collective and personal, was she born into?
Tall order. How can we help?
Each of us will play a role in this theater of the past. You, Sati, will play my grandmother, Laya Bunderband, Koritz's wife. You, Joni, will play Miss Dorothy Devora typing. Dorothy's worked as a typist and writer for Das Yiddische Wort, covering the North End. She also teaches English to newcomers. But her true aspiration was to be an actress. She gets her big break when charming Yiddish theater producer Aleph Bet Zweig selects her to play the lead, the twice-promised bride Leah, in the Yiddish play The Dybbuk. You, Argo, will play the role of Aleph Bet Zweig, who in 1924 has ambitions to premiere in Winnipeg The Dybbuk, the newest sensation from Moscow State Yiddish Theater. You, Art, play Harry Steelberg, president of Steelberg Garments and Coats, Winnipeg's largest Jewish clothing manufacturer, chairman of the Winnipeg Jewish Old Folks Home, and its largest financial contributor.
And you, Izzy?
I play Yisrael Yitz Koretz, the man who I was named after, who died just before I was born.
What am I, chopped liver? Don't I get a role?
You're a future prophet, Hershel of Ostropol. You play yourself, the jester, the commentator.
Cheer us up when we're down. If we get too high, bring us back to earth.
I'm curious about the role of the Yiddish play, The Dybbuk, where the ghost of the soul of her truly intended haunts the soul of the bride who marries another. Koretz was not the truly intended of me, Leah Budnerband. My bashert was the 18-year-old Chonen, who loved me and who I loved, but we did not wed. Koretz was the man that I married, my second cousin.
Kissing cousins, eh? Kids come out all right. They say marry your cousin, kids might come out with an extra finger, or worse, emotional anorexia, who knows? Anybody's guess when you go futzing with your cousin.
Leah may have been unhappy because she married Koretz instead of the boy she loved. But how do you think Koretz felt? Resented for being who he was in a marriage arranged by his own forceful mother to his cousin?
It's weirder than that. I checked Leah's DNA and ran it back through the genome decoder. Leah Budnerband was the great, 6 times great granddaughter of no less than the Megid of Mezerich, the greatest disciple of the Baal Shem Tov.
Did you notice how great the lady's family is? Not just great, 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 great. Look who thinks she's great.
I didn't feel great, an arranged marriage, and not to my bashert Chonen.
The matchmaker commodified love. She sold Koretz's mother on the merits of Leah by talking about her yichus, that she was a direct descendant of no less than the Magid of Mezerich.
She's not just a granddaughter, she's a great, great, great granddaughter. How much am I bid for this lucky bride?
But Koretz also had yichus. DNA shows his great, 6 times great grandfather was none other than Pinchas of Koretz, another disciple of the Baal Shem Tov. It was Reb Pinchas of Koretz who was charged with the responsibility of raising the Baal Shem Tov's grandson, Baruch, the chosen Hasidic heir.
And my role in the theater of the court of Reb Baruch was to be his personal jester when the Baal Shem Tov's grandson is feeling despair, to cheer him up when he's getting ahead of himself, to bring him back down to earth.
Here's a riddle. What does the Dybbuk, the Baal Shem Tov, Mission Impossible, and 1920s Winnipeg Yiddish Theater have in common?
As a successful South End businessman, I'll tell you what they have in common. Nothing. Garnished.
What nothing? They all are a plot element of our play, North End, 1924.
Correction. Worse than nothing. This play is a shpoch, a mess, a balagan, oizgemischt, a shotness of a balagan and oizgemischt.
I read that memoir by Koretz's daughter Sylvia. Wow, it sounds like Koretz was a narcissist. He only thought of himself. Distant, a dandy, liked to talk and play on his fiddle. He wouldn't even buy his wife a new coat.
Wait a minute. Koretz couldn't buy that coat because he spent the small amount of money we paid him to bring over our nephew and niece to Canada from Poland, and then put them up in his little house on Salter Street.
I read the text of that memoir too, and had a different interpretation. I found Sylvia an unreliable witness. Her recollections are full of factual errors, and she's clearly biased in favor of her mother, Leah, and against her father. She describes the family situation as evidence of bad character when that was simply how things were in those days. Fathers were less involved in childcare, daughters less valued than sons. To marry off a daughter, you had to pay a dowry to the groom, as he himself knew.
I guess to be fair, once his wife and kids came and he was working for the old folks home, not much chance to be the intellectual musician or poet he was raised to be back in Russia.
For most of us Yidden, coming to Canada was an escape from poverty and restrictions to a land of opportunity. But for Koretz himself, not so much. From the parlor of his mother's great home in Corvetz to the crowded immigrant home on Salter Street, it was a long way down.
I am intrigued by their Hasidic Judaism, belief in miracle workers and charismatic leaders, and above all, dreams of a coming messianic redemption. And then, how did these joyous, singing, dancing Hasidim from Koretz and Mezerich turn into this? The people we're looking at, dressed in this strange, I dare say outlandish fashion, are nonetheless Jews. But they don't speak a word of Arabic. Instead, they speak Yiddish, a language they call their Mama Loshen, Loshen being a strange, I dare say outlandish, pronunciation of Lashon.
Wittgenstein says, tell me the 3,000 words you use and I'll tell you who you are.
What's even stranger is that the Hebrew letters in their sacred space spell socialism, and that hammer and sickle are the symbols of a new secular religion that had taken over Russia, the land from which they fled.
The Hasidic miracle tales of transformation and redemption, devotion and messianic expectation gave way to political devotion, tales of political transformation, and messianic expectation of the triumph of the working class. For these Jews in 1920s North End Winnipeg, when the newborn Soviet Union was still something heroic, Moscow was the new Jerusalem.
It's there they've got the range and the machinery for change.
But it's here in North End Winnipeg that we've got the spiritual thirst. And the reason in 1924 that Soviet Moscow was the new Jerusalem really comes down to theater, avant-garde Jewish theater, in Yiddish and in Hebrew. Moscow State Yiddish Theater had art direction by none other than Marc Chagall.
Take another look at that photograph of the Workmen's Circle, 1924. It's not just the collective dreams that fascinate me, it's the individual people. Every face had a name, every name had a face.
It wasn't just politics and theater that filled their souls, it was writing. In literature, the individual artist gave voice to the collective, gave expression to the inner thoughts of the Jewish people.
Who are you thinking of? Mendel Mocher Sworim, Sholem Aleichem, or Isaac Leib Peretz?
For sure it's Peretz. They named the Yiddish school for Peretz.
What Peretz story was your cat's meow?
If not higher. Perhaps Peretz's most famous story. It is told by a skeptical Jew from Lithuania
Litbach noch.
who was so eager to disprove local legends about the Hasidic rabbi of Nemirov that he hides under the rabbi's bed to check things out for himself. The rabbi's Hasidic followers believed that when he disappeared every year between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, he ascends to heaven to plead on their behalf with God.
Look who pleads with God.
The skeptical sleuth discovers, however, that the rabbi is actually assuming the disguise of a woodcutter in order to perform anonymous acts of charity.
Look up in the sky. It's a sage. It's a rabbi. It's a woodcutter.
The Litvak is so impressed, he becomes a disciple of the rabbi. The story concludes, and ever after, when another disciple tells how, at the time of the penitential prayers, the rabbi of Nemirov ascends to heaven, the Litvak does not laugh. He only adds quietly, if not higher.
Telling stories is fun, but don't we have to get back to our mission?
Maybe telling stories is our mission.
Will stories about skeptical Litvaks and saintly rebbes help Izzy understand his grandfather as a man, a husband, a father? Help Izzy understand about his mother? I was struck in Sylvia's memoir about Koret's own mother, Chaya. She was willful, full of life force, full of eros.
A real wilde Chaya?
My mother-in-law Chaya was the breadwinner. She made a lot of money selling fabrics as a broker, buying in quantities from mills, and then selling individual bolts to small shops around the countryside. She traveled from town to town, meeting people, telling stories, doing her business.
So I found it interesting that in Winnipeg, Koretz also went out on the road, raising donations for the old folks' home. He traveled from town to town, meeting people, telling stories. Here's a notice from Das Yiddische Wort, May 27, 1924. The superintendent of the old folks' home, Mr. Y. Koretz, will visit the following Manitoba towns: Altona, Gretna, Plum Coulee, Winkler, and Morden. We call all the Jews of these towns to receive him with friendliness and to give heartfelt, generous donations to our noble institution.
Wait, May 27th, 1924 is just 2 months after my mother was born. And off he goes on a road trip?
Maybe he was happy for the chance to get out of our crowded, immigrant, noisy house on Salter Street.
Maybe he had the philosophy, live every day as if you might die tomorrow.
If only I knew when I was going to die, I could plan accordingly.
I know when you're going to die.
When?
At the very end of your life. So cheer up, you got time.
How much?
I'm not saying. Time's a funny thing. They say when the Baal Shem Tov died in 1760, the 2 clocks in his house stopped.
Interesting. The wristwatch my father gave me for my 18th birthday stopped at the very moment our firstborn son came into the world. Fraulein typing?
Devora, Dorothy.
They told me you will be typing my article on the meeting of the young Maccabees.
Certainly. Shall we get started? You dictate, I'll type.
Have we met before? Perhaps at the People's Bookstore near the Grand Theater on Main Street. I'm often there for the discussions.
Perhaps. I go to the Grand Theater whenever I can. Maybe one day I'll be performing at the Grand.
You certainly have the lovely face of a great actress.
How sweet of you to notice.
I sometimes play the violin in the orchestra at the Grand.
I'll look for you next time I'm there. Shall we begin?
Very well. Those who were at our last meeting must agree the Union of Young Maccabees not only exists on paper, but is also full of life and energy.
Full of life and energy.
Without appeals, $150 was collected on the spot and immediately sent for the war victims in the land of Israel.
That's a lot of money you raised. Go on.
The meeting reached its highest ecstatic point when it was first proposed that a group of comrades be ready at the first opportunity to travel to the land of Israel. The atmosphere was magnificent. All were already drawn there in their thoughts, hoping to reach the final goal of Zionism.
The final goal of Zionism.
As a result, 15 male and female comrades decided to join this group. Judging by the determination of the comrades, we can say with assurance that they meant it, not merely under the influence of fine words, but with full consciousness, emerging from a long process of thinking. Yisrael Koretz, Secretary.
I believe I've got it all down correctly, Mr. Koretz. It will go in Tuesday's edition.
Ashena Dank, Devora, Dorothy. Perhaps I'll see you soon at the Grand Theater?
Who knows? One day I may be on stage and you'll play your violin.
Fine words indeed. But Koretz's name was not on that list of 15 comrades. In the end, he preferred the Dominion of Canada to the Holy Land. To the fig tree, the olive, and the date palm, he preferred the apple balm, the Birnbaum, and the Tannenbaum.
Fraulein typing?
Devora, Dorothy.
Olive Betzweig, pleasure. They told me you'll be preparing my ad for the Queen's Theater, the home of Jewish art drama.
Certainly, Mr. Zweig. But I just need to finish up with Mr. Koretz. He's also taking out an ad, very exciting, a notice from the Moshev Zakanim about his appointment as the new superintendent.
Koretz, you're going straight? You're getting a day job?
You know Mr. Koretz?
Sure. He's played violin for us at the Queen's Theater and in orchestras for some of the cinemas around town.
My life as a performing artist is over, I'm afraid, A.B. My wife and children are arriving any day. I need a real job.
Mr. Koretz has helped me get started in my career as an actress. Why, at last year's Belfort Day rally and parade down Main Street, Mr. Koretz dressed me in costume and let me be the centerpiece of the young Maccabees float.
Devora, your thespian talents deserve a better audience. Come down to the Queen's Theater and audition. I can get you off a float and onto a stage.
As the head of the Bochar of the Winnipeg Yiddish Old Folks Home, and also the head of the Spielberg Garments and Coats, and the biggest contributor to Winnipeg, Moshev Zakanim, I call on our new superintendent, Mr. Yisrael Yitzchak Koretz, to deliver his report and say a few words. Yisrael?
Meine Freund, that the Kinder are mechuyav, they're obligated to care for their elderly parents, just as their parents once cared for them, is a 1000 Jahren, 1,000-year-old rule. But if the Kinder do not fulfill this obligation, the Gesellschaft, society, must step in and not allow the elderly to die of hunger. And that is what we, Yidden from Winnipeg, and Marod de Canada, do in our institution. Some believe that a Moshev Zakanim is an institution where one holds people whose usefulness to Gesellschaft has been spent, who are no longer profitable, about whom nobody needs to worry. But these can only be beliefs of people with no sense of duty. I am reminded of a story that my own father, Olav HaSholem, once told me. A Hasidic Zeta had Gewalt, a non-frum grandson. The Hasidic Zeta wanted his Einikel, his grandson, to experience the spiritual inspiration of the Zaydi's Rebbe. So, on one visit to the Rebbe, the Zaydi brought his Einikel along. Spiritual inspiration, however, the grandson received garnished. The Zayda at that point told him a story. A man once went to the Beis Hamikdash, the holy temple of Jerusalem, and watched as a barefoot Jew stood there and slaughtered behemoths, animals. The man thought, this must be just some butcher. So he didn't pay him any mind. But then, when they told him that a barefoot man was none other than the Kohen HaGadol, the high priest himself, preparing to offer the temple sacrifice, then the man began to look at him with the groise derech eretz, the greatest of respect. Finishing his story, the Zayda turned to his grandson. When you, my child, see my Rebbe with really open eyes, then at that moment you will behold the Heiligkeit, the holiness that emanates from him. Mein Freund, my friends, when you see our institution from the right standpoint, then at that moment you will behold its Heiligkeit, its holiness.
That was Koret's best speech. The board was so impressed. His command of Yiddish, how he drew on the Hasidic concept of holiness. He made them see how their humble communal work was like that of the rabbi of Nemirov, assuming the disguise of a woodcutter to perform chesed, acts of charity and loving kindness. Koretz returns from his triumphant performance at the board meeting to his wife Leah in elevated spirits.
Stoked, manly, frisky, full of koyach gavra.
That night, Izzy's mother was conceived.
Mistyping. I don't have much time. My wife is in labor. But I understand that the printed annual report of the Moshev Zakanim is hot off the press, and I just can't wait to see my speech that you helped me type up.
Oh, yes, Mr. Koretz. The box with 200 copies is right here.
Thank you for your help in putting that report together, Dorothy.
I'm Devora again. I guess Devora is a better name than Dorothy for a Yiddish theater actress.
On stage?
Yes. Tomorrow night, March 21st, 1924, is the opening night of the Dybbuk at the Queen's Theater, and I'm playing the bride, Leah. Wish me luck.
All the best luck to you, Devora. I only wish I could see your performance, but family obligations. Who plays the role of Chonen, the truly intended young Kabbalist?
Why, none other than Aleph Beit Zweig himself.
Oh, he's a lucky man, A.B. Well, break a leg. Isn't that what they say? Goodbye, Devora. Dearly beloved children, Sylvia and Gordon, we received your letter that arrived after the bris, so we want to wish you Mazel Tov once again. May your son be Mazeldik, and may you derive much nachas and pleasure from all your children. I don't believe that a child should be given 3 names. It seems it's meant to be that your son should be called by the 2 names that you chose for him, and may you have much pleasure from him. You're still young people, and if it is meant that a grandchild should bear my father's name, we can wait. Today I saw a picture you sent of Ruth swinging, wearing a bathing suit. I am sure there is no child more beautiful than her. If fate has decreed that you are in Toronto, so far away from us, and we don't have the possibility to enjoy ourselves with our children and grandchildren, send us pictures of them. I'm sure, Sylvia, that when you read my letter, you will smile and think that something is wrong with your pa for being so sentimental. Yes, that's what it's like. If, God willing, you will one day have grandchildren, you will also be just as sentimental. Your father, Israel Koretz. Mother sends her regards and asks that you kiss on our behalf our grandchildren.
Izzy, come quick! Our choir is singing on the internet!
La, 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 la. Things wir wollen, werden nicht alles vor.
Sie sagte, das stille Fuß hat geglanzt und groß. Himmel,
wo sich hat gepflanzt.
Oi, 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 Welt, mein stete Welt, mein Leben dort hier von meine kindische Jord verbracht. Oi, 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 Welt, mein stete Welt, mein Leben dort hier von meine kindische Jord verbracht.
One thing puzzles me. You say 2 million Jews left Eastern Europe and came to America between 1880 and 1930. But most Jews stayed behind. What happened to them?
It's too horrible to relate.
Worse than the 1066 pogrom of Granada? Worse than the Almohads who caused me to flee Spain?
It's worse than you can ever imagine.
Let us not focus on the darkness. The Baal Shem Tov's great-grandson said, a single candle dispels much darkness. And he taught, it is a great mitzvah to be always happy.
I don't often agree with you, Hershel, but this time I do.
Hannah Arendt said, if only history were not so awful, life would be a joy to live.
Halabi Ibn Zelig, your report on the future is visionary, prophetic. And the way you ended your report, as it is written, I will send the prophet Elijah to you. He shall reconcile parents with children and children with their parents.
Prophecy is a form of history, future history. What will happen with interpretation?
And history is a form of backward-looking prophecy. What did happen? Also with interpretation.
The future is only possible because the present engages in dialogue with the past and with past generations.
Rais, what am I to do with all that I have learned?
Use the single point of view recording device known as text. Set down in writing what you hope will last.
Awake, awake, speak the song. Uri, Uri, dabri shir.
I set me down what I hope will last. Dream speech written when I woke from sleep. Act 1, Scene 1, days of future past. I sow and hope that you will reap. And all my thoughts and all my breath will leave me when I sleep in death. So I leave these dreams that are strangely true, and share through words my friends with you. As the world through acts of speech was born, God's word made heaven, God's word made earth, and the night sky glimmers until the morn, with stars aligned from our day of birth. Yet all the stars and all recall will fade to dark at our final call. So I leave for you my written thought, to speak for me when I am not.